Hey, Robin.
Hey, Stephanie. We are officially in episode 20. Can you believe it?
No, actually, I kind of can't. It's gone by, I feel like, really
I know.
fast, and I can't believe that we've done that many episodes.
I know, me too. And before we jump in, we just want to thank all of you who've been listening. Again, it's been a lot. This series has brought up big feelings, powerful reflections, and some really beautiful messages. And we're so grateful to be on this ride with y'all. Thank you.
Since we started this podcast, we've seen thousands of downloads and connected with listeners all over the world. It's been incredible to witness how many of you resonate with this conversation about healing, regulation, and coming back to self. In our last episode, we explored what it means to repair the relationship with self, how we begin to rebuild trust, and show up with more presence, regulation, and care. Today, we're extending that into our relationships. What happens when we start to show up differently with partners, friends, or family? What does it mean to trust ourselves in connection? How do we move toward secure relating when we grew up managing chaos, masking our needs, or becoming the emotional caretaker? This episode blends nervous system science, trauma and attachment work, and something we talk about often here, the felt sense of connection. Let's get into it.
Let's arrive. Wherever you are right now, give yourself a second to pause. To be with yourself. You might shift your seat, place a hand on your chest or your lower belly, or even soften your gaze. Take a breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. This is where we begin. Not by figuring it all out, but by coming back to presence. You don't have to have it all together to be here. Your nervous system is welcome, however it's showing up. You belong in this conversation.
When we talk about self-trust in relationships, we have to start with the foundation. Most of us were taught to tune out our needs in order to keep the connection.
Yes, and especially if you were emotionally unparented, your earliest relationships may have required you to override your instincts. To stay close, you had to stay small or perform, or manage someone else's emotions instead of learning to name your own.
It does create a lot of confusion later in life. Why do I feel so anxious in this friendship? Why am I always doubting myself with my partner? Why does a calm relationship feel so boring?
Because for so many of us, chaos was the blueprint. We learned to regulate to that inconsistency, to conflict, to tension, also including that emotional neglect. We became skilled at reading others, managing the emotional weather around us. And we really lost touch with our own internal cues.
So when we begin healing, relationships can feel weird.
Like our nervous system doesn't know what to do with that safety. We long for peace, but it can feel unfamiliar or even threatening.
Absolutely. Peace is a foreign concept if you were born into chaos. And that's why this work has to be slow, gentle, curious.
Mm-hmm. Because we're not just changing how we act, We are rewiring what feels like home
And that starts by noticing the body, the cues, the moments of push and pull.
and building a relationship with our own inner signals. So we don't need external validation to feel okay.
It's hard to trust yourself in a relationship when your earliest relationships taught you not to.
Hmm. Right? And it's even harder when your body still responds as though chaos is that normal. That's why regulation is so important here. Not the fake calm, but the kind where you feel safe, safe enough to stay present to yourself, to trust yourself, even when it's hard.
Exactly. We start building self trust when we stop abandoning ourselves to preserve the connection with others.
And sometimes that means learning how to stay in that discomfort, to stay in that slowness, to stay when the old pattern says leave, fix, perform, chase, all that stuff.
Here's your nervous system nugget for today. Trust isn't just a decision, it's a pattern your body recognizes. When we grow up with inconsistent or chaotic connection, our nervous systems learn to associate unpredictability with intimacy. Whew, that is some profound information. So even when someone is kind or steady, it might feel confusing or even boring. The good news is your nervous system can learn new patterns. With repetition, with slowness, with safety, what once felt unfamiliar can become familiar. What once felt threatening can begin to feel nourishing. You don't have to force trust. You get to build it, one nervous system cue at a time. Let's get into what this really looks like, because we're not just talking about romantic relationships. We mean all relationships: friendship, family, chosen family, coworkers, even how we relate to the world.
Yes. And something that's helpful is to name what's happening without pathologizing it. So many people say, why am I still like this? Or why do I always attract unavailable people? But really, it's often about survival patterns. Your brain and body are wired for a certain kind of connection. And now you're trying to learn something new
Which is beautiful and brave.
and hard because sometimes when you begin to speak up or ask for space or say what you actually feel, it brings up those old fears.
Like, will I be abandoned? Or will they get mad? Will I lose the connection? Or my favorite, will they still like me?
Mm, yes, exactly. And that's when indecision shows up. You go back and forth. Should I say something? Should I stay? Is this need even valid?
Because if you grew up not being taught how to identify basic needs, or worse, being shamed for them, it can feel almost gross to ask for what you need. It can feel like a really big risk.
Totally. Sometimes even trying to name a need brings up embarrassment or disgust. Like, do I really need this? That's often where masking starts. Not just to hide from others, but to avoid confronting our own internal longings.
And when indecision shows up, it's usually not because we're flaky or incapable. It's because we've learned to distrust our own needs. The back and forth is often your nervous system just trying to stay safe.
That's why even small acts of tuning in matter. When you pause to check in with your body or even name a subtle cue, you're saying, I'm allowed to listen to myself now.
And when you start staying with yourself in those moments, something shifts. You begin to anchor internally, not just externally.
So you're not as rocked by someone else's tone or their withdrawal. You can stay present to your truth, even if the other person is struggling.
It is not perfect. Okay? It is not linear, but it's a path toward relational self-trust.
Yes, it's the ability to recognize when your body is in a familiar fear loop and choose gently to do one thing differently.
To pause before answering, to name a need, take a breath before apologizing for something that wasn't yours.
To tolerate not knowing exactly what you feel, but still honoring the part of you that feels something.
Yeah, absolutely. It's happening. You're feeling it, and so you get to repair. That's what that is. Not just with others, but yourself. Today's coping tool is what we're calling the inner compass pause. This isn't about figuring out how you feel or what you should do. It's about tuning in to your own direction, even if it's subtle.
Sometimes we can't name our feelings, especially if we weren't taught how. So instead, we ask, does this feel toward me or away from me? Does this moment feel settling or spinning? Am I shrinking, stretching, or standing still?
You're not looking for the perfect answer. You're looking for a flicker of truth, something you can gently follow.
You might place a hand on your heart or lower belly and let your shoulders soften. Close your eyes if it feels safe and just listen.
Noticing is enough. Noticing is the repair. It's like letting your internal compass come out from the drawer it's been shoved into, dusting it off, holding it gently, and waiting for that needle to quiver.
Even if you don't get clarity, even if all you feel is noise, know that that's okay. Staying with yourself in the fog is how that self-trust starts to form. Here is your weekly reflection question. Where in my relationships do I tend to override myself? And what's one small way I can pause instead? Trying not to change everything, just to notice, just to stay. And that's where it starts.
I just want to take a minute to give some real life reflection to our listeners. Many years ago, probably about 11, possibly 12, Robin and I were working in the same mental health office, and her office was across the hall. And I think we were both documenting. And I am someone that talks out loud to themselves. And I guess I wasn't really paying attention, but I suddenly heard her say from the other room, "What'd you say? Yo!"
I was like, yo, and you were not paying attention. Yo, are you listening to yourself right now?
Uh-huh.
I'm sure that there were some expletives, but
Oh, yes.
yes.
And I went, "What?" Clearly indicating, no, I am not paying attention to myself. So insult after insult, she finally, I guess, got fed up with it, which is fair because that's what a good friend does, is not put up with that. And she challenged me. I want you to try talking to yourself in a way that maybe, who would you never talk to like that? And I gave her a person in my life, a relationship. And for about the next 3 months, when I was critical on myself, I made a mistake. It was hard. I initially was mean and combative toward myself, but I immediately checked myself and kind of redacted and said, "It's okay. It's all right. People can make mistakes. You dropped a plate. Oh well." No harm, no foul. And eventually the brain believed me. The brain let go of that hypercritical narrative inside of, I can't trust myself. I'm not good enough. It was pretty remarkable, actually. And I credit you for that, Robin, all the time. I tell people about that in sessions.
Oh, I love you.
Well, I love you.
Be nice to yourself, you bitch.
I know. It's counterintuitive, but in another way, if you know, you know. So next week, we're going to be closing out series 4 with a little mini episode. Okay. 20.5. This is all about coming back to yourself after rupture, after survival, after years of feeling disconnected. We'll explore repair, integration, and what it means to return to a self that feels rooted, resilient, and real. We can't wait. And remember, healing isn't linear, and we're here for the ride.
Thanks for sitting with us today. If something resonated, we'd love it if you shared the episode, left a review, or connected with us on social. We're 2 therapists walk into a podcast on most platforms. You can listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. It is not therapy, does not replace therapy, and does not establish a therapist-client relationship. If you're in crisis, please reach out to a qualified mental health professional or call 988 in the U.S. Robin Green is a licensed therapist in Arizona, and Stephanie Edsall is licensed in Utah, but this podcast is intended for a general audience.